The once busy warehouse was now in shambles. Everything disappeared as if it never existed. Guards stood nervously waiting for Vian's reaction. She was standing motionless in the center, her back straight, but the rage radiating off her was almost tangible. Boss, Jungkook's men hit us before we could close the deal. When we returned, everything was gone. They took everything. Everything? She said too calmly, but her guards knew. That's the dangerous sign. They all moved at a safe distance from her. She looked at one guard not getting an answer. He flinched and nods, fear flickering in his eyes as Vian clenched her fists. She slowly turned to him, her voice cutting like ice. Billions gone, just like that, because of him. Another guard tried to intervene. We can recover, boss. We. Everyone flinched as she shot in the air. Her eyes blazed as she looked around ruined warehouse. She took a deep breath, her fury boiling beneath the surface. Jungkook, this is the last time you interfere with me. She stepped forward, her boots crunching against broken glasses. Staring into the empty distance, she raised her voice. I swear on everything I own, on everything I've built. You won't have anything till the end of this year. I'll make sure your empire burns to the ground before I put a bullet through your head. The guards exchanged uneasy glances as she stormed off, her movements sharp and purposeful. The air was heavy with her vow of revenge, and everyone was trembling in fear. In a luxurious penthouse bathed in moonlight, Jungkook leaned against the glass window, staring at the city below. His phone vibrated on the table. Picking it up, he smirked as his right man spoke. The mission was a success, boss. We got the shipment and left them with nothing. Good. And her reaction? Furious, I'd imagine. We could not get to see her again. Her guards looked like they'd seen a ghost when we left. Jungkook walked over his desk and pulled out a file with Vian's symbol on it, a mark that's become as familiar to him as his own name, a bird sign, falcon bird, which was considered a clever bird, which represented her, making a move without letting anyone know about it and never missing it. The infamous Queen of Shadows, always so careful, so precise until I'm involved. He leaned back in his chair, his expressions a mixture of amusement and curiosity. They've clashed many times, always with the mask behind their identities, but her cunning strategies have always intrigued him. You know what I love about her? She's relentless. Every time I ruin one of her plans, she comes back even more determined. It's risky, boss. She has lost billions because of you now. She'll be gunning for blood. Let her. She doesn't even know who I am. Plus, he pours himself a glass of whiskey, the ice clinking against the glass as he takes a slow sip. And the beauty of this game is the mystery. She has no face to put her hatred on, and I have no face to fear. It's perfect. He stared at the city lights again, his smirk widening. Let her swear revenge. I'll be ready to ruin her next move. She can't outplay me. He tapped his fingers on the desk, a slight glint in his eyes. She'll come for me eventually, and when she does, maybe I'll finally get to see the face of the queen who's been keeping me entertained all this time. Jungkook sat in his sprawling office, the city skyline visible through the floor to ceiling windows behind him. He swelled a glass of in his hand, his thoughts on his long-time rival Vian, the elusive Mafia queen he had never seen unmasked. A file with her emblem lay on his desk untouched, but ever present. Boss, it's been weeks since the deal. No retaliation from her yet. That's what bothers me. She's too proud to let this go quietly. He set the glass down, narrowing his eyes at the file. Vine is not type to retreat. She's plotting something. She has to be. Maybe she's licking her wounds. You did leave her broke on that deal. No, she doesn't back down. If she's quiet, it's because she's planning something big. A knock on the door interrupted their conversation. His current secretary stepped in, visibly nervous. Sir, I'm here to give my resignation. It's just the job is too demanding. Jungkook waved her off with a dismissive gesture. Fine, leave. She hurried out and Jungkook turned to Jaehyun with a smirk. Make sure to deal with her so she doesn't open her mouth and put out ad for new secretary. I'll have HR set up interviews immediately. Good. Maybe this new secretary will give me some entertainment while I wait for Ryan to make her move. He leaned back in his chair, his mind drifting once again to the mysterious queen who had managed to hold her silence for far longer than he'd expected. Stay quiet all you want, Ryan, but when you move, I'll be ready. Wine sat in her lavish office, scrolling through files. Her right-hand man entered with a smirk. You're gonna love this. Jungkook's hiring a secretary. And why would I care? Because it's your golden ticket. Get in close. Finish what he started. Interesting. Jungkook sat in his sleek office, leaning back in his chair, with his eyes fixed lazily on the screen in front of him. The live feed showed the candidates walking in one by one for interviews. He was utterly disinterested, swirling his whiskey absent-mindedly. Why do I even bother? They're all the same, boring, predictable. His right-hand man stood beside him, flipping through the candidate list. Well, we need someone, boss. The last secretary barely lasted 6 months. Jungkook was about to turn away from the screen when a new name was called. Next candidate, Kim Sera. The door to the interview room opened, and Vine walked in, dressed in a sharp black suit that hugged her curves perfectly. Her stride was confident, her posture poised. Jungkook's eyes snapped to the screen, his lazy demeanor vanishing as his interest picked. Who's that? Kim Sera. Pretty name. Matches her. His gaze remained fixed on her as she took a seat, her every movement exuding control and authority. The HR manager began the interview. Miss Sarah, why did you apply in our company? Because position was open. I mean, why do you think you're suited for this position? Because I solve problems other can't. I know how to manage difficult situations, and I understand the value of discretion. This role requires you to handle sensitive information. How do we know we can trust you? You don't yet, but trust is earned through actions, not words. I deliver results. What's your approach to dealing with high pressure scenarios? Pressure is just another challenge. I analyze, prioritize, and execute. Panic only wastes time. Jungkook watched, his gaze narrowing slightly as she answered each question with precision and poise. There was something about her, something familiar yet unplaceable. He leaned back in his chair, an uncharacteristic smile tugging at his lips. Call her into my office. You want to meet her personally? Really? Did I say something else? You've never cared about these interviews before. Humor me. Wine entered Jungkook's office, the air heavy with tension. She looked around briefly, taking in the luxurious space before her gaze settled on him. Jungkook stood behind his desk, his eyes locked on hers. She stepped forward confidently, meeting his stare head on. For a moment she was lost in his beauty. The man in front of her wasn't just handsome, he was beautiful, breathtakingly beautiful. Wine snapped out of her thoughts, her subconscious scolding her. You asked to see me, sir. Kim Sera, you don't look like someone who would settle for a secretary position. Why are you here? Sometimes the best opportunities are not obvious at first glance. I like challenges, and this position feels like one. You are very sure of yourself. I am liking her already. It feels like she is female version of me. Confidence comes from experience. I don't claim what I can't deliver. Jungle leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on the desk as he studied her. If I were to give you a task right now, something nearly impossible, would you still be so composed? I wouldn't be here if I could not handle the impossible. There was a brief silence as their gaze locked, tensions crackling in the air. Jungkook found himself smirking. I like your attitude. You're hired. Report here tomorrow morning. Vine inclined her head slightly, her expressions calm as if she knew she'll get this job. Thank you. I won't disappoint you. She gives a small bow and walks out, her heart pounding with suppressed anger. So this easy? This is going to be fun. Jungkook stared after her. His right-hand man stepped into the room looking puzzled. You actually hired her. Just like that. She's different. I can feel it. What Jungkook did not realize was just how different she truly was. Jungkook sat at his desk, reviewing a set of contracts. Across from him, Vine stood poised, her expressions calm and professional. Over the past few weeks, she had proven herself indispensable. Every task he threw at her, he handled with precision. Every challenge, she conquered effortlessly. This still wouldn't have been possible without your work, Sarah. I've never had someone as capable as you in this role. I'm just doing my job, sir. He leaned back in his chair, studying her. Doing it too well. if you ask me. Your instincts, your timing, it's flawless. I should definitely increase your salary. Vine tipped her head slightly, hiding the flicker of satisfaction in her eyes. Perfection is necessary in business, sir. Sure thing. A week later, Jungkook stood in the middle of a grand conference room. Papers were being signed, handshakes exchanged. The business deal Vine had orchestrated brought in an enormous profit, solidifying Jungkook's position as an untouchable force in his legal ventures. None of this would have happened without her. She is worth every penny we are paying her. Did you see how cleverly she handled our clients' questions and convinced them in our side, which is very profitable to us? We're gonna print money on 2x soon. Why did you let her participate in meeting? It's not her job. 'Cause I know her ability is more than just a secretary job. You've got yourself a gem, boss. I know. He glanced over at Ryan, who was standing quietly by the side, watching the scene unfold. He didn't realize he was lost in her until she caught him staring at her. She gave him a polite nod. Later that night, Ryan stood in front of the floor to ceiling windows of her luxurious apartment. The city lights glittered below, but her focus was elsewhere. A small smirk tugged at her lips as she swirled the wine in her glass. You trust me now, don't you, Jungkook? You think I'm your greatest asset? She turned, her eyes cold and calculating. I helped you gain everything. I made sure you succeeded at every step. She walked to her desk, where papers with Jungkook's financial records and business contacts were spread out. Her smile widened, venom dripping from her voice. And I'll take it all away from you, piece by piece, until you have nothing. She raised her glass to the city lights, the smirk on her face never fading. This is just the beginning, Jungkook. You'll wish you never messed with me. She looked at his pictures, which were also scattered beside papers. She kept staring at his pictures. Her brain and heart were on different passages. She shook her head and downed the wine in one go, her resolve unwavering as she prepared for the next step in her plan. Jungkook at Wine, disguised as Kim Sera, sat in his office late at night. The atmosphere was unusually relaxed, with Jungkook leaning back in his chair and sipping. Wine sat across from him, diligently organizing files, though her mind was anything but calm. You know, Sarah, there's someone I can't stop thinking about. Wine froze for a moment, her fingers pausing mid-sort, but she quickly masked her reaction and looked up, feigning curiosity. She was curious about it. Why though? Someone, sir. Jungkook shares everything with her now. He has also told her about paying up, not knowing she already knew everything. Jungkook smirked, swirling his. The infamous queen, my dear rival, little fearless birdie. Little birdie. Vian's grip tightened on the folder she was holding. She forged a calm expression, though rage simmered beneath the surface. The one who's been your thorn for years? Exactly. There's something about her. The way she always manages to rise, no matter how many times I knocked her down. Most interesting thing, she managed to knock me down many times as well. The great John Jungkook. Wine's anger burned hotter, but she smirked internally, tracing his logo, a line sign on one of his files. She clenched her jaw, keeping her voice steady. She must be quite capable to hold her grounds against someone like you. She is more than capable. I love how fearless she is, how she doesn't back down. It's entertaining. Excuse me, entertaining? Wine's nails dug into her palm, her rage barely contained as Jungkook continued. I know she hates me to her core, but I don't see her as an enemy. Wine blinked, momentarily caught off guard. This was unexpected. You don't? It's not personal for me. She's the only one brave enough to challenge me, to give me defeats that sting. I can't hate her for that. If anything, I'm curious about her. Ryan's eyes flickered with a mix of emotions, anger, confusion, and a strange sense of vulnerability. Jago continued, unaware of the storm brewing inside her. I've never seen her face, but I can tell she's extraordinary. That kind of courage, it's rare. Wine's internal fury mixed with disbelief. She was supposed to be his sworn enemy, the one he loathed, and yet here he was, speaking about her with something bordering on admiration. You're quite interested in her. I'm only interested in her. Don't get me wrong though. I love messing with her, watching her scramble to outdo me. But it's all part of the fun. Vine stood her movements deliberate as she placed the files on his desk. Her voice remained steady, but her thoughts screamed with anger and determination. You love messing with me, Jungkook. Fine, but this time I'll be the one pulling the strings. She straightened her posture, meeting his gaze with a polite nod. If that's all, sir, I'll take my leave. Sure, Sarah, get some rest. As she walked out of the office, her heels clicking against the marble floor, she whispered under her breath, her eyes gleaming with resolve. Let's see how much you enjoy being on the losing side this time. Thriller Bunny disguised as a lion.